Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review I am very happy to be showing you the 2017 Comic-Con exclusive Hot Ryu from Storm Collectibles, which I still don't understand the whole hot thing. Someone explained it to me, but I didn't quite get it. But this is the Ryu from Street Fighter V where he's not wearing a shirt and looks like a badass because he has a beard and scars. And who doesn't like a beard and scars? And he's got a whole new sculpt for the most part and some pretty cool accessories. So this guy is definitely a nice change from the regular Ryu, which was already fantastic. So I'm very excited to show you guys this. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 7¼ inches tall, which makes him just about 18½ centimeters. And as I mentioned, it's a very much different figure from the standard Ryu. You know, most exclusives are just color changes, which is fine. I mean, that's what we saw with Noob Saibot, and it's still a really cool figure. This guy, on the other hand, whole new figure, and that's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure they showed a color variant for this guy at Comic-Con already at preview night. So I'm filming this on preview night, by the way. So I don't know if that's going to be an exclusive or what, but either way, we're going to review this guy because if you guys are at Comic-Con, now you'll know to pick him up, and if you're not, then you'll know to track him down because it is fantastic. The paint job on this guy is really good. The skin's all nice and matte finished, and we have the scars painted on there and sculpted on there, and it just looks really, really good. Very nice finish to this guy. The headband is darker and dirtied up, so that looks cool. All the wraps on the arms and hands, really nice detail, very nicely painted. The belt still looks just as good as ever. The pants have a really nice finish to them. The painted skin tone matches the rest of the figure really nicely. Little toe bandage looks pretty good, so it's just a really, really nice looking figure. And then the face, painted just as well, sculpted just as well as before, so that's pretty darn cool. Now, before we get into the figure anymore, let's talk about accessories. We do have 3 different faces. We have the standard face, which is kind of neutral with his mouth closed. We have one where his teeth are shown and he looks angry, and then one where he's yelling. And they're all done really well. The eyebrows are painted much nicer than before, and the beard is painted pretty nicely for the most part. There's a couple issues where it probably could be painted a little bit better, but that's going to be the case with any mass-produced figure, so I'm going to give it to him. It looks pretty good. And then for the hands, we have the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package, and basically 3 different style pose hands, various levels of open and closed fingers, and they are all nice soft plastic and interchange onto the pegs very nicely. No issues interchanging them at all. We have 2 different sets of energy effect parts. One is just the yellow lightning that goes around his wrists, which is for what I believe are EX moves. It's been a long time since I played Street Fighter, but I'm pretty sure it's for the EX moves. And they're done very nicely with a nice translucent plastic with yellow shading. And then we have the charging Hadoken accessory, which is a nice translucent blue with a really cool sculpt and heavier blue shading going out to the tip, so that's really, really cool. And then lastly, we have our Street Fighter V display stand. Still a really cool display stand that holds the figure up for tatsus or whatever it is that you want to do. So very cool accessories, different accessories from the regular release. So this guy is just basically a whole new figure, and it's very cool. One really cool feature about this guy that I didn't think was going to be a feature, but it is, the ties on the wrists and on the shoulder and the belt and the headband are all pegged in place, and there's no glue involved on this guy. It's one of the cool things about Storm is they're all just pegged in, so you don't have to worry about anything breaking from glue at least. But the cool thing about these is that you can rotate them, so just like we could rotate the headband before, you can do the same thing with all the little ties. So if you need to pose them and make it look a little bit more realistic, you can rotate that to make it look like it's being windswept or whatever. Same thing for these guys. Now, the thing with these guys, they go on here, and this is also a soft piece of plastic. So the tabs are also soft and squishy, so it can be kind of a pain in the ass to swap them out, or at least to rotate them. But I found that if you pop them off and then push them back on in the direction you want, it's a little bit easier. You might have to play around with it for a second, but they're going to go into place however you need them to. So that's pretty cool. And then the belt, of course, you can also rotate as you need to. It's also soft plastic, so it's going to take a little bit of patience to get it where you want it, but I think that's a fantastic feature. All the time we get figures that don't have that kind of feature for loose hanging parts of their outfits, so I really, really appreciate that. Now, the rest of this guy is essentially like the same on paper, kind of like mechanically speaking, but there's some things to note. One is that the head is much more viable in terms of posing. You can lean the neck over, and it stays a lot better on this guy than it did on the previous version. So I do like that. You can lean it forward, and it stays. You can lean it back, and it stays. So that's really, really cool. And all it is a really long ball peg, or essentially a double ball peg. So he can move around pretty well. So going to have a little bit of play on that top ball peg, but most of it's going to be rotation on the top one, and then your leaning is going to come out of that bottom ball peg. And it works very nicely because the chest is a nice soft plastic, and so is the neck. This whole piece is soft, so you can move the inner piece around very well, and this floating piece just kind of tucks in as it's necessary. So very nicely done. It's just a giant ball peg going from the shoulder down into the torso, so you can move it around really nicely, no problem at all. And then you have your ball hinge, which gives you on its own incredible range, and then like I said, you can move that around. So very, very pleased with how that worked out. They did a great job engineering these guys. The functionality is just fantastic. You have your bicep swivel, which works really nicely, no problem at all. I mean, bicep swivels are generally pretty standard. We have our double jointed elbow. I just knocked this guy off. You can see here, I'll zoom in so you can see the pegs on these guys. It's very soft plastic because this has to flex for the wrist. So tabbing these back on can be a pain, but it is just a round peg, so no worries there. I'm going to leave it off for now. So we have our double jointed elbow, which does function. Not quite as good as the Mortal Kombat guys just because he's so bulky, but you get a little bit better than 90, so I'm okay with that. We do have our wrist piece right here, which is that soft plastic I was talking about. And then we have, as you can see, a ball peg for the wrist to connect into the forearm, and then that's a ball hinge on top of that. So you can really move the hands around pretty much however you need to. You can see you can even kind of just like hinge the hand and move that peg around. And it works very nicely, and the peg doesn't feel like it's going to pop out, so no problems there. You have good range, and you can hide it with that. So very, very pleased with that. For the diaphragm joint, it's pretty much the exact same thing as the original Ryu. You can lean really far back. You will get a little bit of gapping if you go all the way back, just because, you know, it's gonna have a gap at some point if you want to have that kind of range. It doesn't lean quite as far forward, but you do get some. And then leaning side to side, you don't get a ton of range side to side, but more than most, so I think that's pretty good. And then of course you get your full rotation, so no problem at all. For the hips or for the waist, we have a single ball peg going up into the torso that is also an upside down T that connects into the hips. So this piece right here can move around really well. So if you combine this with the upper torso, you can really get a good sideways crunch out of him. Very nicely done. I love the way they did that. Great execution. And then this is just a floating crotch piece, so you can still, you're going to have to finagle it a little bit to make it all work, but you can still get his hips to move almost completely horizontally. Now I've gotten his crotch piece tucked in over here. You're going to have to be careful. Like I said, it's going to take a little work, but that's because it's a really tight-fitting crotch piece. And that's good. You don't want it to look like a diaper, but it's going to take a little work posing them. And there we go. So you can get the hips out pretty far, almost into the splits. It only took about 2 seconds of finagling, so no problems there. And as you can see, it's a nice, tight-fitting, loose crotch piece, which sounds weird, but you can get really good posability out of this guy. No issues at all, and there's the articulation. You have your two ball pegs, which go into the sockets, which rotate inside the thighs as well. So really, really great option for putting them into any kind of pose you want. You know, some people will complain that this crotch piece is too tight, the floating crotch piece. Personally, I prefer it like that rather than having a big diaper, because I'd rather spend an extra second to pose him to make him look good than to have a big diaper on the figure. So, you know, that's up to you, but I like it a whole bunch. And then you can move the leg going forward. It'll pop off if you go too far. No big deal. It's just a ball peg. You can move the leg going forward. Almost 90, pretty much 90, so really no problems there. And you saw it's just a big ball peg, and it's not loose or anything. It'll just pop off if you stress it the wrong way. It'll just pop off, so no big deal. For the knees, we have our double jointed knees, which go only a little bit better than 90. Definitely could be better, but he does have the baggy pants, so I'm going to let it slide. And I do like the way they sculpted the knee so that we don't have any huge gaps in there, so that's really cool. Down here for the ankle, we have a swivel in the shin, which is underneath the pants, so it doesn't have any problem with the sculpt, so I really do like that a whole bunch. It can help in posability. We have our hinge for the ankle that allows the foot to go forward and back, which is really nice. You have good range. Then you also have that ball peg that the ankle is on, so in conjunction with the hinge and the ball peg, you can really get the foot in any pose you want. It has a nice ankle rocker with the ball peg, but if you want even more, you can rotate the lower leg, rotate the foot, and then you have an incredible ankle rocker using that hinge. So very nice functionality there. And then lastly, we have a toe hinge, which probably not the most necessary, but if you want it, it's there. So this guy's just pretty much all around a really, really nice figure. It's just shy of perfect. I mean, it functions, it looks good. there's not a whole lot you could change about this guy without getting into nitpicks. So I am very, very pleased with it. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.